I would like to welcome you all to NYU Abu Dhabi, to the NYU Abu Dhabi Institute event. Tonight we have a very special event, which is basically the conclusion of our two-day regional conference workshop on women computing in the Arab world. I am really excited to share with you our findings and to also share with you to shed some lights on the trends in Arab women in computing. We had about basically 30 speakers from the Arab world, from 11 countries. We had speakers from Egypt, from Lebanon, from Kuwait, from Saudi Arabia, from Palestine, from Syria, from Jordan, from the UAE, from Morocco, and from Algeria. We also had support and wonderful contribution from the international community and international organizations in the US and also Canada. And it was really a wonderful celebration of and collaboration of women in computing across border, talking about women representation in the field, talking about research, innovation in research, discussing ideas, challenges, and opportunities, and sharing also success stories. So we've had an amazing 2 days event, and we came with many achievements, I think, during the past 2 days. Not only that we've learned about the diversity of the Arab world, that it's not a monolithic trend, but there are many trends across the different countries in the Arab world. And we shared the speakers shared many of the, again, the problems in research, the also exciting trend that basically women are really enrolling in computer science and engineering in high numbers in several Arab countries. Meanwhile, in the US, it's about 20%, which in the 80s was about 40%, nearing 40%. So this is an exciting trend. At the same time, we also have many challenges to deal with in the region. But what's exciting about these 2 days, we were able to also commit to doing a full study and collaboration across the Arab world to shed some light on women and computing. And we're hoping to finish that study by August 2013. So to me, that's really one of the biggest achievements of this conference. The second achievement is to also, we created an organization, an Arab Women for Computing organization, which we're hoping to be linked to women in computing organizations, and also the Grace Hopper conference, which is the largest conference in the US, with the support of Deanna Kosaraju, who's here from the Anita Borg Institute of Women in the US, that sponsored the largest conference in women in computing, and that also founded, Diana herself founded the Women in Computing in India, which is also an NGO as part of the Anita Borg Foundation, which is basically an institute, one of the largest and renowned institute on women and in technology in the US. So we're really excited to be here and to share these findings with you. And our speakers are also excited to be talking to you about some of the things that we've discussed and we went through this weekend. So before we go into the speakers, I would really like to thank the Institute, the NYU Abu Dhabi Institute, for hosting us, for supporting us. It's been a great and a tremendous team to support about 40 people for these 2 days. So thank you so much, Reinderd and Gila and Tarek and Nels and Noura, everybody from the Institute. I'd like to also thank NYU Abu Dhabi Vice Chancellor Al Bloom and also Fabio Biano, the provost of NYU, for their support also during the conference, and for computer science at NYU Abu Dhabi. So I feel like we have a department, and we've accomplished 2 successful events this year with the support of the NYU Abu Dhabi and Institute. We have done the International Hackathon for the social good in the Arab world, and now we have another strong achievement, which is basically the Women in Computing Conference. So without further ado, I would like to introduce the keynote speaker to you, Deanna Kosaraju. She is the Vice Program Initiative for Anita Borg, which is the most renowned women in computing organization in the US. And again, she organizes for the past 6 years, actually. She was the vice president of program for the Grace Hopper Conference, where thousands of women women in computing around the world come to this conference, which is an amazing conference, actually. And that's what inspired me to do this conference, because I go every year and we take our students from NYU New York to this conference, and it really launches their career, because they see senior computer scientists, they see VP from Google, VPs, and senior scientists also from Google, from Microsoft, from the different fields, and they're really inspired. They make connections, they find jobs and scholarship and so on. So, Diana has been a great support and inspiration throughout this project. So and we will continue to do that. And she's, again, very happy to support us with our initiative. She also started the Women Computing in India, which is linked to the Grace Hopper Conference in India, which happens every year. So please help me to welcome Deanna Kosaraju.
Thank you very much for the wonderful introduction, Sina, and thank you so much for organizing an amazing workshop, the launch of the Women in Computing for the Arab World. It was tremendously inspiring. The women are just incredible in their own right, and together they're a force. And so I look forward to the amazing work these women are going to be doing in the coming years, and I hope to be a part of that. So as Sena mentioned, I'm Deanna Kosaraju. I'm the Vice President of Strategic Initiatives at the Anita Borg Institute for Women in Technology. Before I was at the Anita Borg Institute, I was a technical woman for 15 years. And in 2001, I made a decision that I wanted to help women, and I wanted to figure out a way that I could give back. After 15 years in technology, I saw some of the challenges that technical women faced, and so I wanted to help other women overcome those challenges. So the company, the startup I was with, was bought by IBM, and so I went back to school, went to UC Berkeley, and got a degree in gender and women's studies, and started working at the Institute as the program manager for the Grace Hopper Celebration for Women in Computing. And as Sena mentioned, it's the largest conference for women in computing in the world. And so I want to talk a little bit about the conference itself, about the Institute. And originally, my talk was going to be at the beginning of the conference, and I just wanted to create kind of a framework of what some of the successes are of ABI and the Institute, and some of the takeaways that we can perhaps leverage so that this newfound organization, this new group of women who are going to be increasing the numbers of technical women in the Arab world, could leverage the knowledge that we've learned over the last 15 years at the Institute. And so I'm going to talk about those things. So who here knows who Anita Borg was? So Anita Borg was a researcher at Xerox PARC. She has a number of patents to her name, but more importantly, she had a huge interest in technical women. And what started this was in 1987, she was attending an SOSP conference, which is a systems conference in Silicon Valley. Who's attended the SOSP conference? I have. It's quite a deep technical conference. And what she noticed was there's an appalling lack of the number of women at this conference, and she had a great sense of humor, and she went to use the restroom, and she saw another woman in there, and she said, where are all the women? And they were kind of laughing and joking about it. And they said, you know what, we're going to go out to this conference and we're going to find every single woman that's here at this conference. And we're going to hold a dinner and we're going to figure out how we can get more women at this conference, more women into this technology, and understand, what's possible, what can we do? And so she started the Institute for Women in Technology as a result of that dinner. And so subsequently, she was trying to figure out ways in which she could encourage women to pursue technology. And one of her big quotes was, she wanted to see 50% women by the year 2020 was her goal. And it was a very big, hairy goal, but it was something that she felt would have an impact that would get people really thinking about what it would take to do that. And so she started the Grace Hopper Celebration of Women in Computing in 1994. And it started with academics primarily, like Maria Clave, who was the president of, or the Dean of Engineering at the Dean of Engineering at Princeton, and then she's now the Dean over at Harvey Mudd. So women like her, lots of academics started this conference. It was really a technical conference that just happened to be with women. And so as it grew, from 1994 to 2011, now there's nearly 3,000 women who attend every year. And Anita passed away in 2003 of cancer, and the Institute for Women in Technology was renamed to the Anita Borg Institute for Women in Technology. But as you can see, her legacy lives on, and we have nearly, oh, sorry. I rearranged my slides a little bit, so I'm sorry. So we have nearly, we have over 1,000 industry women, 1,000 students who participate every year from hundreds of colleges and universities all over the world. The last Grace Hopper celebration was held in Portland, Oregon. We had nearly 3,000 registrations, which was an increase from 2010. The previous year was an increase of 37%. Since I started in 2006, the conference has grown 375%. And I would love to say that we're scaling and making serious impact, but we've barely scratched the surface, and we know that. But we're making really good headway in terms of the numbers of women that are coming to the conference on a regular basis. What's interesting is why women come to this conference. And I'm going to, in the next few slides, I'll talk about why they come and what we provide for them. We feed the pipeline. It's really important that these women understand that there are role models out there, women who are like them, who are just a little bit ahead of them, who can show them the ways that they've been able to achieve their both professional and personal objectives. It's a very supportive community. For a lot of women, this is the first conference they will ever speak at. And so, when they show up to the conference, it's very supportive. The women are very interested in the work. Oftentimes you'll see collaborations as a result of these conversations. And it's multidisciplinary. So the Grace Hopper celebration is really at the axis of computer science and all other disciplines, which is very unusual for a technical conference. Usually a conference is a SIG. It focuses on a very specific type of technology, but we cover all types of technology. And so a lot of these students are able to explore different disciplines, where biology or bioscience or neurobiology crosses with computer science. And that's very similar to who Grace Hopper was. Grace Hopper was a very multidisciplinary woman throughout her entire life. The content that these women talk about in the conference really starts with how they're changing the world. So titles of some of the talks are things like, how do you prevent blindness using mobile applications in Africa? How do you find a child who's been lost using RFID? All types of different conversations are going on that start with, how are we changing the world? How is this technology going to have an impact on society? Which is, again, something really different from what you see from a normal technical conference, where it's about, how many lines of code or how many hours this took to develop this type of technology. But you walk out of there thinking, what is this really going to be used for? How is it really going to have an impact? At the Grace Hopper celebration, we start with how it's going to have an impact. And women are very altruistic in nature. And if you show them a way that they're going to have an impact on the world, they're much more likely to stay in the field, and they're much more likely to pursue different types of disciplines that may be unconventional. And so, we really try to bring all types of minds, all types of disciplines to this conference so that women who are students and academics and industry can explore what their next step is in their career. I think the most important thing, though, is as a woman, when you go to a technical conference, you put on your technology hat, you go, you give your talk, you submit your paper, and that's great, but you don't get to bring your whole self. At the Grace Hopper celebration, they give the technical talk, but then they also might be on a panel on how to survive grad school. What are some of the ways that you can, take maternity leave and come back after your maternity leave is over? How do you find a sponsor? How do you find a mentor? So it's not just a technical conference, but it's also about the woman technologist, who she is, what she's about, and what advice that she can offer to those around her that are going to make them successful. So for the student population, we've partnered with a number of organizations such as CRA. Is anyone here a member of CRA, the Computing Research Association? They're a great organization, and they have a women's arm of the CRA, which provides several tracks at Grace Hopper on careers and research. And for a lot of undergrads, 1/3 of the student population at Grace Hopper are undergrads, and they don't typically have exposure to research or researchers. So they provide a whole track for undergrads to pursue careers in research, career opportunities in their undergrad career, and also they provide advice on applications for grad school, and then also advice for junior professionals who are just starting out in their careers in research. Amazing group. We also offer a PhD forum, new investigators, which are newly minted PhD students. 2/3 of our student population are in a grad program or a PhD program. And most of our sponsors have never seen that many women PhDs in one place. I mean, it's really quite spectacular to have that kind of, those numbers of amazing PhD students. We offer scholarships for the conference. We have a special student track that talks about issues as a student. And then we also have a student research competition where posters are reviewed by ACM, the Association for Computing Machinery, and the finalists go to New York for a student research competition event. And typically our 3 finalists place in the top 5 every single year since we've been holding that student research competition. So the quality of these posters is incredibly high. One of the metrics that we use in our evaluation is career commitment. So we measure the career commitment that a woman has after she's attended the conference. And as you can see, 82% of them agree or strongly agree that the conference has increased their commitment to the technology career. So that's one of the ways that we measure the success of the conference. For industry women, we have an industry advisory board, which convenes together to talk about the program content specific to industry women. I don't know if you know who this woman is up here on top. That's Sheryl Sandberg. She's the COO of Facebook. She was our keynote speaker last year and an amazing role model for technical women. The woman down below, you may not know her, but you should know her. Her name's Linda Apsley. She works for Microsoft, and she is one of the top women on the Connect project, the Connect system for Microsoft. And she has 6 children, and she is still one of the lead women on the Xbox in the Connect system. Quite an incredible woman. Amazing story. So for industry women, giving them opportunities to speak, giving them awards and recognition is really important, and also mentoring from executives, and I'll talk about that in a minute. For academics, we also have an academic advisory board, very important role academics have. Not only do they get support, but they also bring their students because they know that the Grace Hopper celebration is a great way to retain and to get young women to pursue a major in computer science. In fact, Harvey Mudd College came out with a paper, I believe it was last year. They said all of their undergrads, whether they're declared computer science or not as a major, to Grace Hopper every year. And now they've upped their participation in their computer science major to 40% women in, I think, about 3 years. So it's pretty impressive. So another measure that we have in the evaluation is inspiration. We feel that being inspired from the role models they see at the conference is one of the ways to retain women in the field. For senior women, we offer a Senior Women's Summit. It works on the issues to the glass ceiling. We offer mentoring with executives. We also partner with the Technical Executive Forum. It's interesting, I just received an email yesterday from a woman who attended this forum. She is a professor at a college in the United States, and she emailed me and thanked me because she's just been promoted to Associate Dean of her college. And she told me the reason she even decided to apply for this position was she attended this summit. So it's having a huge impact on the senior women to, as Sheryl Sandberg would say, lean forward and to try what they thought might be impossible before, to see what's possible. Technical Executive Forum. We work with executives, C-level executives at tech companies all over the world to talk about changing the culture of technology to make it more amenable to women. And we share best practices. We talk about the data, and we help them develop an argument to enact projects in their own organizations, and they report out year over year. So this last one that we had in November, we had over 70 C-level executives, and they sat down with their teams and they developed a list of goals and objectives that they were going to leverage to change the culture of their organization over the next year, and they will report back in 2012. So the Grace Hopper celebration has created a buzz and a desire to have small regional celebrations all over the United States. And so we've partnered with the Association for Computing Machinery, ACM, and NCWIT, the National Center for Women in Technology, to create the Grace Hopper Regional Consortium, where we're expanding the number of small regional celebrations. These are clusters of schools that get together and create what we call mini hoppers. They're 2-day events, and there's usually a poster session, there's a couple of tracks, there's support in education for academics on how to retain and provide outreach for students pursuing careers in computer science. So I just wanted to talk a minute about India. So in 2008, I went on vacation with my husband to India, and as usual, I had to go meet with technical women because I love technical women, and I always do that. And I talked to a couple women over at IBM and at Intel, and they were telling me that they really wanted to have a Grace Hopper conference in India, and that there wasn't anything for them. And looking at the community, no one knew anyone else. The women at IBM didn't know the women at Microsoft, that didn't know the women at Intel. And so I came back from my vacation and I told my boss, I said, we got to start this conference in India. And she said, no. And I said, what do you mean? Look at these numbers, look at the data. It's incredible. There's hundreds of thousands of women engineers in India, and they have no community and no support. And she's like, no, we don't, it's on the other side of the world. We have all these other things that we're trying to do. And so my colleague and I, Jody Mahoney, and I wrote a proposal to Google, and we asked them, we said, will you give us some seed money and we'll go figure out how to make this conference work in India? And so they did. And I went back to my boss and I said, okay, well, now we have the money to do it. Will you let me do it? And she said, yeah. So in 2009, we started working on the conference for women in computing in India. Excuse me. And we started with these 3 women, and then it became 17, and then it became 47. Now there's over 1,000 women in the last conference in 2011. And, sorry, what's different about the Indian conference is, and this is something I wanted to talk about during our workshop, is in India, it's all about FaceTime, and it's all about relationships. You know, in the United States, you can put up a Facebook page and you can get 100,000 people to hit it pretty quick, and they start having these really interesting conversations. In India, it doesn't work that way. You know, you literally had to meet one woman at a time, and you had to meet with them at least 3 times and explain, you know, who you are and why you're there and why this is important. And it literally started that way, one at a time. And then they started telling the people that they knew, and then it just started growing exponentially. But what really made it grow is we meet on a quarterly basis in 5 cities in India. So I go to India once a quarter, and those numbers have grown in those meetings. We started out with like 5, and now, you know, we have 70, 150, 250 women in one of these planning meetings, and we meet every quarter. And so we're meeting to talk about the conference and what the conference should look like and what's the content, but what we're really doing is we're creating these great relationships with one another. We're learning, you know, what the challenges are for technical women in India. We're learning, you know, what we can do to support one another as we're going through this. So it was amazing. Just watching these meetings, you would look around the room and all of a sudden you see all these light bulbs going off on these women, and they would say, you know, I thought I was the only one. I thought I was the only one who couldn't figure out, you know, how to deal with the, you know, the commute in Bangalore, or, you know, I can't find reliable daycare because there's no licensed childcare in India. You know, all of these issues that they thought that they were going to have to deal with alone now have become, a broader community issue and something that they're addressing together. And it's amazing how they've all bonded over the last 2 years and really built some long-term, long-lasting relationships. And this conference is really the end result. It's a celebration of what they've been working on all year long. So as you're building this community of Arab technical women, you might want to think about having, you know, physical quarterly events, you know, where you're getting together in ways. So when you have these conferences, you know, you've already built a lot of these relationships and these networks already. It will make the conference so much more interesting. We've talked a lot about this program during the last 2 days. Am I doing okay on time? The Tech Women Initiative was launched in 2011, and who here was involved with the Tech Women Initiative? An amazing program where these women went to the United States for 5 weeks. They were paired with a mentor in Silicon Valley and worked on projects there, and then they went to Washington, D.C. and presented the projects that they were working on and got to meet Hillary Clinton. It was an amazing event, and it's something that's continuing in 2012, and we're very excited about that program. ABI is also working on a Top Company Award. We understand that not only do we need to work with the women to increase the pipeline, but we also need to work with organizations on how they can change. So we created the Top Company for Technical Women Award, and last year it was given out to IBM. And what they do is they submit their data to us on, you know, the number of board of directors that are women, the number of women in high-ranking management positions. You know, they have to tell us their data from the pipeline, and we compare that with other organizations in their same space, and, you know, so we give out the award to the one who's doing the most improvement from year over year. And what we do then is, you know, if another company didn't win, we go back to them and we show them their data in comparison to their peers and show them these are the ways that you can improve your numbers. These are the ways that, you know, we can work with you to improve the working conditions for technical women in your organization. And it's been hugely successful. We're just about to announce the winner of the 2012, and I can't tell you who it is, but it's really cool. So it's really made an impact, and these organizations are really starting to look at their own numbers and how they can improve them. It's becoming quite the competition. And then we also do a lot of really compelling research. I just copied and pasted this from our research page. But some of the big research is climbing the technical ladder, obstacles and solutions for mid-level women. We actually got access to 7 multinational corporations' data. They let us into their vault, which is really unheard of. No one has ever had that kind of access. And so we've written a series of papers on the barriers to the retention and advancement of technical women, specifically at the mid-level in the US, because in the United States, by the time a woman hits mid-level, half of them have dropped out. And so we are trying to address that concern. How can we keep those women in so that they can advance in their organizations and get that seat at the table at the executive level?
you mentioned that Anita Borg was thinking that the goal was by the year of 2020 that we will have 50% of women in technical roles. And if we reach that, we finally get 50% in all countries, what is your do you still need to have an Anita Borg Institute, or do you think that we say no, we have this natural network of people when we go to conference, or do you think that we'll still need to have that type of institute and conferences?
I would love to be put out of work. I really would. I think I love Anita's vision. It's something that I wish I had had the opportunity to work with her. I think it's an amazing idea. But one of the things I think she didn't understand when she said that back in the 90s was that you really have to focus on not only increasing the pipeline of technical women, but you also have to change the culture of technology and work with executives. And when she first launched the Institute, the thought of changing the culture of technology wasn't in her mind at all. So that's something that we were banging our heads on the wall for a good number of years, trying to go, why isn't this pipeline, being fixed? Why are we still losing these women at the mid-level? And it was because we weren't focusing on the organizations that can change the culture. And so, that's where we're headed. That's what we're really trying to do. But also, I personally think that not only do we have to focus on the US, but we have to focus on the world. Because, as we've seen in the last 5 years, just in India, a number of the women and men that we relied on to fill positions in the United States, in technology, they're all going back to India and starting companies and being, amazingly successful. And so, the pipeline of technical talent in the US is shrinking because, people are going back to their own countries after they've been educated. And so if you don't look at the problem globally, you're not going to be able to solve some of the challenges that we are going to face in innovation and in society. So I think my job is pretty well set for the rest of my life and then some.
My question is the philosophy of the term technical woman. Why not technical people? Because we are all equal. Why do we put the women together in technicality? We are all the same.
You're right, we're absolutely
equal. Why
you
collect the women together like
You're
like
absolutely
this?
right.
I'm a man, look for this point from as let's put neutral observer from outside this technical association or something like that. Why?
Well, yeah, I agree with you, we're all equal. But all things being equal, there's some studies out there that say, for example, in the United States, that women do 70% of the housework. That they are generally the main caregiver when the couple has a child. And in technology, you have kind of the double whammy, right? So when I was in technology, when I first started in technology, I would get this manual, and I would read through this manual, and I would know everything that I would need to know for the next year about the technology that I was in, right? Well, now, that stack is this high. The barriers of keeping up with technology is just crazy, right? So a technical woman has, primary responsibility for the children, primary responsibility for the house. Overall, yes, they do. Yeah, well, okay. For many of us, they do. And I have to say, I'm standing here and my husband's at home taking care of my 9-year-old daughter, so there are exceptions to that. But, so they have that, and then they have this technology on top of it. And so, the husband's at home flipping through the manual or, doing open source on, while the woman is, doing the things at home that she needs to do. So it's not equal in all places. It's just not. And we need to figure out as women how we can deal with those challenges. And it's going to get harder. And so that's why we need to build this community together. So I'll give you a statistic. In Silicon Valley, if you look at a Silicon Valley executive, the males, 80% of them have a wife that stays at home. And if you look at the women executives in Silicon Valley, 80% of them are not married. I mean, that's, so, as these women are advancing through their career, they're having to make choices, and a lot of the senior level executive women are making the choice not to marry because they can't. So that's what we're trying to overcome.
I have a question, I have a question about not so much the term technical, but where do you see, what do you still subsume under technical woman and what not? Kind of a simplistic, perhaps an oversimplified question, because I'm just very curious. I would almost like to wish to see the term covering an enormous field. My impression, though, is that it is very much geared towards computer science. Could you say a little bit about that?
The Grace Hopper celebration is really about women in computing. What I've noticed, especially in India, for example, a woman who's in computer science and a woman who's a double E or is in hardware, the culture of the technology companies that they're in is very different. And so the Anita Borg Institute has chosen to focus on women in computing because if we went wider than that, we wouldn't be able to handle it. And so, we're very niche, and we don't pretend to answer all of the challenges for technical women across the board. The other thing we get asked is, women who work in technology companies, because even women who are not technical still have to deal with the culture of a technical company, and there are lots of organizations who are working on that as well. But we feel keeping women, the PhDs, the researchers, the ones with the master's degrees, we feel like if we can keep them in the field, the impact that they could have on society would be profound, both in innovation, in organization profitability, and productivity. So that's where we focus our energy.
My presentation will be about representation, challenges, and opportunities for women in computing here in the United Arab Emirates. I'd like you to know that this is not my work. It's been a collaboration for a short time of the following colleagues. So I'd like to thank them very much for helping me in collecting the data. And I'll be presenting mainly their work. Also, I'd like you to know that most of the data that I will be presenting were collected for this academic year. For some universities, they're over the recent 3 years. And we're hoping that when we end this conference, that this will be just a beginning to maybe do a comprehensive research about women in computing in this area, maybe in the United Arab Emirates, inshallah. So I'll start with some figures representing the women percentages in major universities here in the United Arab Emirates. What challenges would I see facing women here? Maybe you'll find them also general challenging facing any faculty member in the United Arab Emirates universities, as well as some opportunities available for women on a faculty level and as well as student level. So before I go to presenting representation for universities, I'd like you just to show you the figures for high school students in the Emirate of Abu Dhabi, which includes 3 cities, Abu Dhabi, Al Ain, and Al Gharbiya. As you can see that the percentage of female students going into the science field as opposed to art fields is 50% in average. So I think we don't have any problem with women representing science in general with high schools, as those students will be feeding the computing fields in universities. So I'll move on now to statistics with regards to universities. I'll start with major universities and colleges here in the United Arab Emirates, starting with the higher colleges of technology. which has many campuses here in the United Arab Emirates. Almost in every emirate, there are female and male campuses. But overall, the percentage of female enrolled in the current year, 2011-2012, in the computer and information science fields is 70%, which is very high compared to other countries like the United States. You can see similar trend here with the United Arab Emirates University. The faculty is called Faculty of Information Technology again. For the undergraduate degree, you have 69% of our students are female students. With graduate degree, which is the PhD degree, we have 81. However, with faculty members, we have only 4 female out of 36 faculty, which is quite low. That makes it 10%. So again, as you can see, we don't have any problems with the percentage of female being students, but the problem is more with faculty. And you'll see this trend with also other universities, such as Zayed University here. Again, for 3 consecutive years, from 2009 to 2012, you see that female percentages in the undergraduate major in in the College of Information Technology is between 60 and 70 or 80%, which is also quite high. However, with the faculty is 5 to 16, so around 30%, maybe not that bad. With American University of Sharjah and Dubai, the picture is a little bit different. So here with American University of Sharjah, percentage of female enrolled in undergraduate computer science is between 30 and 40%. So lower than the other major universities that I've just presented. However, I think still the percentage is higher compared to the United States, for example. And American University of Dubai, it's a little bit even lower, 21%, 23, and 27, so it's getting higher, but still the percentage is lower than other universities. Female faculty are less than 15%, so the percentage of female faculty is low, and that's consistent with all other universities. With Khalifa University, here it's a new university, probably established 3 years ago. With undergraduate and graduate in computer engineering, you have around 50% percentage are female, and with software engineering it's around 90%, but you can see also the number of enrollment is quite low, 10 and 1. With the faculty, you have 2 female, but 13 male faculty members. With Masdar Institute, the currently enrolled students, you have 41% for, and just like you to know that Masdar Institute is just a graduate institute. So again, you have 40%, 50%, that's, so we're doing well. And you have only male faculty members in the computer science department at Masdar Institute, no female faculty yet. So just to summarize, based on those figures that we have seen, and I hope that we have covered main universities here. There are some other universities where we were not able to collect the exact data on time, and this is why we couldn't present the other universities. But you see that the number of female students, the percentage is quite high, and however, with the faculty members, it's low. So some of the challenges that are facing women, but I wouldn't say only women faculty, that's facing faculty in general here in most maybe universities in the United Arab Emirates, is conducting quality research due to different reasons. I would highlight high teaching load in a lot of universities, limited funding for research, and you don't have also quality PhD students or RAs that will assist with conducting quality research, and this might be one of the reasons that hinder faculty members from getting maybe promoted. Motivating undergraduate students also, maybe for faculty members who have taught here in the United Arab Emirates, you'll see it's a little bit challenging to motivate students here. With regards to students, I'll talk about what's the challenge facing students to continue their higher degree in computer science or in computing in general. Mainly with female students, it's cultural factors. So a lot of female students are very excellent. They achieve very high GPAs by the time they graduate, and they wish they have the opportunity to go and study abroad, and there are opportunities. However, what blocks them from going and pursuing their PhD abroad is not having approval from family members, cultural factors, and other things like that. However, let me talk about opportunities, and we'll see that there are some opportunities, but again, cultural factors is what blocking most female Emirati students from pursuing their higher degrees. With opportunities for faculty that would support their research is that there are some research funding, again, very limited, but I'd like to identify those research funding organizations that can help with funding. The National Research Foundation, ICT Fund in Dubai, Qatar Foundation, and NSF. With Qatar Foundation and NSF, you have to have a partner who's based in Qatar or US for the NSF to get funds from those two organizations. With opportunities for students, I'd like to talk about the TA program, which I'm really proud of. It's a teaching assistant program at the United Arab Emirates University, which offers full scholarship for students that are Emirati to pursue their master's and PhD degrees abroad in really good, excellent schools. Most of our TAs would continue their studies in the United States. I went through this program, and basically what happens is after you get the scholarship, you get hired as a teaching assistant at the United Arab Emirates University. But the moment you get accepted for the PhD degree, you travel, you get your master's, your PhD, and then when you're back, you're guaranteed the position as an assistant professor in the United Arab Emirates University. It is open for all Emirati students who have a bachelor degree. It doesn't matter where you get your bachelor degree from, as long as this university or institute is accredited by the higher education here in the United Arab Emirates. Just to conclude my presentation, although we found that although we did research very limited research in a limited time, we collected data in a very limited time, but you can see that there is a trend. We have high enrollment of students in computing fields. It's between 30% and 80% in most universities here. However, the number of female faculty is still quite low, and there are some challenges, but hopefully this conference addressed some challenges and did present some solutions to it then. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just interested if you have some explanation for why it's so different in the UAE in terms of the male-female enrollments. I didn't sense that you were really interpreting your results. Do you have some ideas?
You mean compared to other countries,
yeah.
or?
Yeah. What's so different about almost the rest of the the rest of the world? Why are there so many women? And the other question is it consistent across the Arab world that you have this kind of results? I mean, even anecdotally, do you sense that it's the same, or is it just the UAE, or just, I don't know, conservative Islamic countries, or what's the correlation?
We didn't make like comparisons with other Arabic countries. Might be consistent with some other countries, maybe not. But maybe it's a special case in the United Arab Emirates, or maybe the Gulf region. I can talk about the United Arab Emirates University. The ratio of female to male undergraduate enrollment is 4:1. It might have reached 3:1 female to male. So from the beginning, we have more female in all degrees compared to male students. It's not 50-50%. And the reason behind that is that male students who graduate from high schools, they have a lot more opportunities than female. They have, they can join the army, they can join the police. They have a lot of more opportunities than women here. And this might give the reason behind this high percentage of female.
I could relate very strongly to your comment about a lack of quality research, because I've always thought that as females, female academics in this part of the world, we're kind of bearing a double shot of being, underrepresented or a minority or, at a disadvantage. So you're not only a female academic, you're also working under very tough research conditions. So have you thought about what are the possible reasons that low quality research continues to be the trend, despite that, we've got the machinery, we've got the buildings, we've got the machines, we've got the books, the internet connection, we're exposed to everything else, and yet we're still unable to instill in our students that they need to get on a more, solid and rigorous research lines.
Yes, I've identified few limited research funds. Like, for example, in the States, there are a lot of funding organizations that can fund quality research, and that supports faculty a lot by, for example, I don't know if they can maybe buy hours or so for teaching to decrease teaching load. So they have the opportunities that allow them to do competitive or high quality research. Also, just from graduating from the University of Denver, the teaching load there is 3 sections or 3 courses the whole year, academic year, where we're doing the same but per semester. So it's almost double the teaching load.
So you think it's only the teaching load?
So I think it's different factors, but I think if you have the opportunity, you have the support, which luckily I do. And also collaborating with maybe other faculty members from different countries, that also helps a lot. Attending different conferences also helps. So I think it's improving. Previously, for example, United Arab Emirates was just a teaching institute. The focus was on teaching, but now it's directing their work and goal towards being a competitive research institute. So it's changing, but it's still a bit slow, and we have a lot of challenges, but I think we're going on the right direction, inshallah.
I'm affiliated to the Nile University in Egypt, which is the first of its kind that is a research university. It focuses mainly on research, and it started by the graduate and then the undergraduate students. It's a very young university, 4 years old or something, but throughout the 4 years we had lots of achievements and publications and patents, and the last one was one of our researchers gaining with 7,000 contestants. He was selected, the first one. He had a patent of converting any screen to touch screen. So this is a new trend in technology. And I'm affiliated also to the National Telecommunication Institute. We'll be talking about the current status, the reasons behind the status, opportunities and efforts, and finally, conclusions. And I'll start my talk by a quote that our Prime Minister said while inaugurating a conference for women. He said, "Women constitute half of the society." And guess what did he say afterwards? "And control the second half of society." Throughout this presentation, I'm wondering whether they do control or not. The aim is not controlling, but we'll be seeing. So for the current status, we have in general, as you know, that science and technology are perceived as main jobs, not for females. And some women in Egypt do study science and engineering fields, but they are still underrepresented. And by this, I would mention that in my classes, I teach graduate classes for security and wireless communications. So this is not that attractive, it seems so, for women. For several semesters, I haven't had any female student in my classes. Maybe I'm the reason, I don't know. The percentage of women joining science and engineering colleges over 10 years is not as updated as my colleague, Dr. Shayma, but till 2007, We had 35% that increased to 41%. The percentage joining in engineering is 25%. Fewer percentage of females choose to pursue a graduate degree. Why? Why do you think so? Can I have your feedback? Lack of opportunity? Maybe they don't wish to. In 2006, 2007, the percentage of female faculty, and excuse those not updated statistics, but it was so hard in the last, the circumstances in Egypt are not the best now, so it was very difficult for me to get the most updated statistics. We had 39.1% assistant professors that decreased to professors 26%. So there is a decay even in the academic career. After getting your PhD, you do not continue working on it. The percentage of female faculties in 2003 was 13.2%. Currently in Cairo University, which is one of the oldest universities in Egypt, there are several departments. For example, these 4 departments. There are other departments too. But guess which department has the highest female percentage? The highest, not the lowest. Last time I asked about the lowest. I changed this. This is the trick. So the highest was chemical engineering. And then the electronics and communication was 11%. This is very few number. There is also very few number in decision-making positions, like in the Egyptian cabinet. You could see that those who are holding positions are in the international cooperation, family and population, environmental affairs, but rarely in industry and communications. None of the presidents or deans are women. And this brings us, luckily, to the second stage of this presentation, which is the reasons behind this. And just to make some change, I have divided the reasons into 2 things for entrance. The first is a threshold effect, called that there is a barrier for high school students getting into engineering because it is a male-oriented job. But there is another problem. Once they are there, there is the glass ceiling effect. They cannot fly further up to become academic, and they feel they cannot continue. I'm glad I finished this university, and I'll be working elsewhere, but not in academia. So there are 4 reasons for women not being in academia, and this is like a game. I thought, it's late now, so you'll have some fun. There are 4 reasons scrambled here. I'll ask any of the audience to just select, and I'll ask the moderator to give me extra time for the games. Okay, I'll solve one of them. For example, there is socialization. Did you get? Is there any other reason? Yeah, there is a lack of models. The 2 reasons now. The third? What? Not advertising. Something on the same weight, There is the word socialization. And there is that A, I'm not sure this pointer. Yeah, that A with this advising, and finally there is that C with the ARE, career choice of the people themselves. And those are the reasons behind. We have the socialization, academic advising, career choice, and lack of role models. Those are the main 4 reasons for not continuing to be academic. The first is the socialization barrier, and as all my colleagues mentioned, for a woman, she needs to choose between her career and her family. Another thing is the mobility issue, because some universities do not want you to be both in the same university. So if you have your career, then you will be close to your university, and if your husband has his career, he will be close to his university. and you cannot both, make it sometimes. So this is one reason that then probably the women will leave their jobs to go with their husbands and not the reverse, probably. We have reversed cases. The second is the academic advising is usually done by males, so they do not, understand the mentality of females who need support, encouragement. They need to build their self-confidence. That's why the advisor must put himself in the shoes of his students and guide them. The career choice, because women choose to be in the industry. They have fixed hours from 9 to 5, and then everything is out, and they go back home. And finally, the lack of role models, which is, there are role models, but we don't see them, okay? We need solved examples. Role models are like solved examples. If you solve it once, you can solve it forever. In the role models, we have seen two types. The first is the instrumentals, those who are career-oriented. They've chosen to have their career on the expense of their private life. There are the balancers, those who try to integrate both the career and their personal life into one nice life together. It is hard to do, but some people do this. And when students see the instrumentals and students who are willing to get married and have a family, and they see their professor an instrumental, oh, I don't like that model, I don't want to be like her, so they go right to the other direction. And this is very dangerous for them. They need someone to pave the way, and this brings us to the opportunities and efforts. There are communities like the National Council for Women in Egypt, and another one, National Committee on Women. It's under the umbrella of the National Council. However, the outreach of these communities are not, not everybody knows about it. The good opportunity was the Nile University, because for males and females, it gives scholarships for students to just pursue their masters and PhDs sometimes, or send them for PhD and get them back. So it's the perfect environment for research. This is one, one bright thing. It's not specifically for women, but I mean, it gives equal opportunities for everyone. And before concluding, I would ask two volunteers just to help me. Bushra, and maybe, okay, Maysoon. We have Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? And I would ask them the questions, and Bushra can ask her team, and Maysoon can ask her team if she doesn't know the answer. Okay. Is there a sound here? Is there a sound in my laptop, in the laptop? Okay, women in Egypt have a higher representation in, this is for Bushra. Okay. Females in the Egyptian cabinet most likely hold the position of? Maysoon, yeah. Maysoon and her team. Family? Are you sure? Presumes that women only face barrier in the early stages of their career. Bushra and her team, you can guide your leader. Do you need any help? I can help. You want to make a phone call? Okay, for Maysoon and her team, women who follow the male model and expect other women to do so are called A. Are you sure? Specific obstacles to advancements into top positions. It's called the glass ceiling. And finally, for Maysoon, get it, then this team wins. Those who attempt to delineate an alternative model to divide their time between work and private spheres are? It's equal. Should have had an odd number. So for the conclusions and recommendations, thank you very much for your contribution. We have to start, as we said in all the workshop, by the high schools and maybe on the primary level too, to encourage, to build the culture of engineering in the software of the female students. We need associations for mentorship to keep the women more up to date to technology such that they gain self-confidence in themselves and they become leaders, very easily, not doubting that they don't know. We need female faculty members. Why? Because at all levels, we need students to see the female faculty who provide good role models. And on the other side, not only female students need to see role models, also male students. If they see they have a good professor, female professor, they would have another look to their colleagues who are prospective professors too, and their female colleagues will feel a bit proud of themselves. So this is something very good. And we also need inclusion, You are losing brains by excluding women from academic positions. So we need to encourage them because we need their brains. Final recommendation is the acceptance of the model of having female faculty members, synchronizing the biological and tenure clocks, because this is one of the reasons, I want to have children, I want to get married, so I'm afraid I'm losing my tenure. So either you choose tenure or you choose your family, and this is a bad choice to do. So if they postpone the tenure clock, maybe things would get better. Finally, provision of significant numbers of role models, and I think you are our role models. My take-home message is let us pave the way for them. Thank you very much.
So it's always hard to present at the end, but and unfortunately I have no millions to distribute, but I have a wealth of information and recommendation to share with you. So today we'll be talking about women empowerment in the knowledge society. We're living in the knowledge society and we need to address issues related to women empowerment, especially when we talk about the technical field. So women empowerment in the knowledge society and using ICT as enabler. We're going to start with an introduction and then we'll proceed to listing how we can use ICTs as an enabler. We're going to overview the status of the ICT sector in the Arab region, and then we'll jump to the status of the global gender gap in the Arab region. And then, of course, we'll go to the ICTs and women empowerment, which is our main goal, and we'll end up with recommendations. So, the use of information and communication technology has been in a steady increase in the last 2 decades, and it has contributed to the development of the modern society in the Arab region. We can use ICT in so many ways to achieve our developmental goals, including eradicating poverty, capacity building in rural areas, and so on. However, unfortunately, in the Arab region, we're not making a full use of its potential. And on top of all this, women's access to ICT has historically been minor. Harnessing the power of ICT is a critical step in developing a real culture of gender equality. What we're looking is the changing culture. We're looking for a culture of gender equality at all levels, including the ICT sector. So, what do we mean by talking about ICTs as an enabler? I mean, different people would think of it differently. It means so many things, and we can define it in so many different ways. And this is a listing of what it could include. ICTs can facilitate information sharing and knowledge management, which are basically 2 main elements of the knowledge society we're living in. ICTs provide businesses, governments with the essential networks to overcome the challenges of distances and the difference of time and so on. ICTs connect women in their community, and they help women to connect at the global level. Therefore, they'll get the chance to exchange ideas, perspectives, and also expertise in their field. ICTs also facilitate telecommuting, and lately we've been hearing a lot of high-tech companies, and not necessarily just high-tech, companies talking about telecommuting. It increases participation and inclusion of women, and especially if we are talking about our region, it increases the inclusion of women in reserved societies. And where women have like special circumstances where they cannot really move a lot, they don't have access to lots of information, and so on and so forth. So, a general picture of the ICT sector in the Arab region. If we look at the first graph, you can see that the ICT, and please mind that the data goes from 99 to 2008 and 2009. So, you can see that there is an exponential growth in the mobile subscription. There is a growth in the internet subscription. However, broadband stays very limited, be it mobile or fixed. And of course, this has some drawbacks. Arab countries, in terms of being networked and connected, are improving. Their status is improving. However, this improvement is very slow. If we compare the Arab region to the world average, we also see that we have the mobile subscriptions which boomed, which has an exponential growth in the Arab states. They actually are above the world average. However, all the rest is less than the world average. This is an overview of the ICT infrastructure and gives an indication of the status of the ICT sector. Then, what about the gender gap that exists in the Arab world? There is a recent report that is very, very interesting that produced by the Global Development Organization and the World Economic Forum that talks about the Global Gender Gap Index. And this index, actually, it's a framework for capturing the magnitude and scope of gender-based disparities and tracking their progress. So we're talking about the gender-based disparities. And unfortunately, if we look at the comparison of the Arab country, actually in here we have the MENA region, the Middle East and North Africa, but the majority of the Arab countries are included, let's say more than half of them. Sadly enough, you can see that the MENA region ranks it's a reverse assessment, so if it's 1, then it's the best place, and if it's less than that, then the index is not good. So we can see that the MENA region is at the bottom. Even if it's less than the Sub-Saharan Africa, less than Asia and the Pacific, Latin America, Europe, and North America. So this is the situation. We have a huge gender gap. If we go within this MENA region where we notice that it's at the bottom, and we just take the Arab countries that were considered in the ranking. Now, mind you that the ranking considered 135 countries around the world, including those Arab countries. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 Arab countries. So more than 2/3 of the Arab countries. You can easily see that United Arab Emirates, for example, ranked 103. And it was on the top of the Arab states. However, globally, it ranked 103. And if we look at the variance between the different years, the rank going from 2008, 9, 10, 11, you can see that there is no huge effort put there because there is no huge difference between one year and another, and especially between 2008 and 2011. So the gender gap is there, the gender gap is persisting, efforts are done, but they're not enough. Yemen is at the bottom, and UAE is at the top for the time being. However, it's important to mention in here, this is the data behind the chart I just showed you. It's very important to mention that UAE, for example, it ranked at 103 level. The rank was 103. However, if we go deep inside that index, we see that it's composed of 4 indicators that tackle the basic rights that men or women should have. We talk about it's based on economic participation and opportunity, educational attainment, health and survival, and political empowerment. And you can see that between countries, if we go within the index, there is also a disparity. If UAE ranked 103 between and ranked top in the Arab states, it doesn't mean it was at the top in terms of economic participation. It was Qatar, or at the educational attainment, or health and survival. It was Mauritania and Lebanon. So I want to say that there is a gender gap at the regional level. There is a gender gap at the country level, even between different sectors. So let's now jump to the education issue. So we now know the status of the ICT sector. We know that there is a gender gap. Let's check the education. What is its status? We got some statistics from the UNESCO Institutes for Statistics, and we checked the percentage of female graduates by majors. From the available Arab countries, we realized that the number of graduates is always minimal when it comes to technical fields. For example, if we look at Algeria, the orange bar is the graduates in engineering. If we look at Algeria, it's the least. Lebanon is the same. Morocco is the same. Palestine is the same. Oman is the same. Actually, in Palestine, there is a difference. In Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates. So you can see that least female representation is in technical fields in general. So. And just mind you that this is a 2009 data, so it's not really outdated. Now, if we also get some additional information, now though outdated, it's 2003 and it's relatively old, but unfortunately, this takes us to the problem of the lack of data that we have. Though it's old, it gives an indication. For example, the King Saud University in Saudi Arabia, the number of computer science graduates, and I was interested in here to show you the trend. Look at going from 1999 to 2003. Look at the difference that we have in terms of graduates male, it's increasing. However, in females, it started the same and then it decreased, which is terrible. I looked at the fact book of the American University of Beirut, which is the recent one, which is the 2011 one. The Faculty of Engineering and Architecture is the faculty where we have the least females compared to males. For 96 female graduates, we have 232 male graduates. So it's not, and mind you that the American University of Beirut is one of the most diverse universities. It's not just the Arab countries. What about the labor force? What about the labor force? What about labor force? What about participation of female in the labor force? We can see through this graph and that there was no real change from 2007 to 2010 in each country. So efforts are not enough in that sense. And we can notice that in Egypt, there was a boom in 2008. And in spite of this boom, the highest participation rate we reached was around 33%. And then it declined. It decreased. So we also have a problem at the telecom labor force. Everything is connected. Education is connected to participation. It's connected. So we have so many problems. We have so many problems facing women in the technical world. We have so many problems facing women in the ICT sector. What are we doing at the international level? The first recognition of the role of ICT in empowering women was mentioned in a Beijing conference. It was mentioned in the Beijing Declaration in '95. And since that time, governments committed to empower women through ICT. But unfortunately, not enough is done so far. We have the United Nations Millennium Development Goals. They also focus on improving the status of women using ICT. There is the World Summit on the Information Society. It started in 2003, and we have the Geneva Declaration, where the role of women in building the information society was emphasized. There are lots of activities in that domain. including removing gender barriers, fostering gender equality, and so on. The MDGs, I'm not going to go into the details of the MDGs, but if we check the Millennium Development Goals, to which most of the governments at the global level are committed to, you can easily see that governments committed to empowering women through ICT. Now, what about ESCWA, from where I come? In line with these old problems, with this international effort, with the Millennium Development Goals, ESCWA has implemented many projects, including, there is a list of projects, but like the latest two were the knowledge networks through ICT access points for disadvantaged communities. And what we meant by disadvantaged communities, we meant like rural areas where we have women that do not have access to anything. And the ICT for education, it was courses, workshops, and so on to build the capacities, the technical capacities of women, and empower them to use those technologies. ESCWA has also done lots and lots of efforts back from 2003 till now. In 2003, there was a regional forum on women in ICT, and the most important thing, the recommendation that came out of that regional forum was the establishment of the Arab Task Force for Women on ICT. And we were talking about like the task forces and research centers and organization in the morning. So this is very important for the project we hopefully Sana will be implementing. It organized various specialized workshops. It organized high-level roundtable on women in ICT during WSIS, a Tunis summit. In 2005-2007, the Arab Women Organization held many meetings for the Arab Task Force on Women that was established in 2003. So follow-up has been done. It's implementing activities, it's implementing projects, but you know, different efforts are needed to make a difference. And since in 2007, ESCWA compiled, in collaboration with the League of Arab States, it compiled a list of indicators on women in science and technology so that we at least end up with a common indicators, with common list of indicators to member countries, most of them, the Arab countries actually, to collect data. We need data, governments need data in order to set up strategies, to set up policies, to be able to implement projects, to be able to develop. So data is needed. Okay. We talked a lot, but what is the current situation in terms of countries' efforts, strategies, Arab ICT strategies? We digged into the strategy that we had access to. We realized that the ICT policies and strategies indicated the importance of gender issues and women involvement in decision-making in not all Arab countries, many of them. I might have missed one or two, maybe because I did not have access to them, but like in Bahrain, Syria, Palestine, Qatar, Egypt, and Kuwait, they tackled the gender issue in their ICT strategy. And when we say they tackled the gender issue, therefore, they have an engendered ICT strategy where women are considered, whether they're talking about building capacities, whether they're talking about literacy, they're talking about labor force. The women and men are having equal opportunities. So what about launching activities and initiatives and programs for women inclusion in the society? Bahrain, Egypt, Jordan, Morocco, and Syria started initiatives and programs, and they implemented them. Some of them were successful, others were not. Mechanisms facilitating women's inclusion in the information society, including portals, tools, and so on and so forth. Qatar and Egypt. Egypt actually is doing lots of effort in that domain, and also Qatar. But in general, Arab ICT strategies, I mean, we listed in here less than third. Less than 1/3 of the Arab region. So in general, the Arab ICT strategies are missing that gender component. Therefore, this will definitely hinder the full integration of Arab women in the information society. What about governments? Now, most of the countries globally and in the Arab world are heading towards e-government. we're heading towards e-government, and we're still talking about women inclusion in the information society. This is going to create an additional burden. This is going to create additional barriers and challenges and so on. So lacking gender perspective affects all societal aspects in the region, including the technical aspect. Now, the major concern, as I was saying, as governments are moving to being e-governments, there is a huge need for gender analysis to avoid women's marginalization. If we don't take gender analysis seriously, we're going to fall into another trap. And research, there are studies, and actually even the UN did a research in that, UN PAN did a research in that field, and it showed that gender issue could be solved through e-government if strategic planning for e-government takes into consideration reality dialogues and citizens as both men and women. So, what are we recommending in here? I talked a lot. We surveyed the ICT sector, the gender gap, the tertiary education, the Arab ICT strategies, the flows, who has the gender component, who doesn't, women empowerment at ESCWA and the UN in general. What do we want? We actually want to focus on the fact that empowering women to become participants in the knowledge society is a prerequisite to increase the development in the region. We want development in the region, we need to include women. A major need and a rushing need is collecting comprehensive ICT data with a gender dimension. We've been discussing lots of data throughout the past 2 days and even now during this panel, and there are discrepancies between the data. There is a huge lack of data. Sometimes sources are different and there are like information that are even contradicting. So what we need is to collect comprehensive ICT data with a gender dimension. Now here it's important to mention the effort that is being done by UNESCO and by the Information Society Partnership for Measurement. They started segregating data by gender. They started this project and they're doing it, but we want to do this project and rush with it for our regions. We need to mainstream gender in ICT strategies and policy frameworks, which leads to engendered information society. Now, and a very important point that we also discussed before is the need to increase the interest of women and girls to specialize in technical fields. How can we do this? We can do it in so many different ways. We can't, of course, we're looking for a changing culture. We can't do this between a day and a night, but we have to keep our hopes high and be stubborn a little bit. So we need to emphasize computer education in the curriculum of girls and provide equal learning opportunities. Even at a young age, we need to push them to go into training, to learn technical issues, and so on. We need to expose girls to become women, we need to expose them to technical women role models. The lack of role models in the region has a tremendous effect on women in computing. I'm not saying that we don't have role models, but I'm saying that we don't have enough media covering those role models. And we're not exposing our girls to those role models. We need to encourage girls to embark onto technical majors and expose them to the impact of this specialty on the country's growth and development. And I want to put 2 lines under this because I've read different articles and they all focused on this point. The argument in those articles was, why are women or like ladies leaving the technical field even if they start? Like in a year time, most of them are leaving. I'm not saying all of them, but the majority are leaving. Why is this? The findings of those 2 research I read is that when you first start, let's say, to major in computer science, the style of education and the way that major is delivered to the students is very, very technical. Ladies have this inclination towards the social and the development issues. Computer science is not only technical. Girls should be exposed to the importance of computer science and its social impact. How can they make a change at the social level? what socioeconomic impact does majoring in computer science incur? Well, ladies should be exposed to those issues. We need to create educational frameworks. We need to create educational frameworks to encourage women to apply for graduate studies in technical areas. And of course, we need to conduct studies and build plan of actions to attract the largest possible number of women in the field of technology and engineering. So in conclusion, even though we have lots of problems, we have a huge gender gap when it comes to technical fields, we have challenges facing women in the ICT sector. The ICT sector itself has some problems, but we have to remain optimistic about the final outcome. We have to believe that we can make a difference. We have to believe that women can have a great role in computing. And I would say my message would be, let us hand in hand enable the environment for Arab women to technically succeed. Thank you.
Thank you, Sukaina.
So it does seem to me that one of the things that's happening with the social impact of the knowledge revolution, as an observer and an outsider in sort of the Arab countries, that it's breaking down a traditional sort of culture whereby women are kept inside and protected while men are outside and solving problems. Now, I just wonder, is that also, we haven't sort of mentioned that, but is that something you see as sort of vital in the sort of the role of in the Arabic context? And if it is there a backlash from the more conservative parts of the world?
Okay, I would say when I talked about the social impact, I meant the social impact of majoring in computer science. When you major in computer science, you can have a socioeconomic impact by building applications that target that issue, by having projects that address those issues. But I want to build upon your question in saying, you said that women in the Arab region, they like some cultures, like they prefer women to stay at home, be safe, and so on, while the men go out and do so. This is still there. It's not the majority in the Arab region. But the impact why we are having less contribution, less women in computing is not because of this, mainly. I would say it's because of the lack of awareness of the families on the importance of ICT, because there is a generation gap, in terms of technology. I would say because of the culture, the stereotypical views of the surrounding for women roles. They would see a woman more in the agricultural field. They would see women more in the educational field. They would see it when it comes to technical issues. They would see her more at the majoring in chemistry and those areas. There is a culture that engineering, pure technical fields are for men, And even if you go into classes, and it's not only in Arab countries. Even if you go into classes, you just if we have a class that has 20 students, maybe you're going to find 1 or 2 women. And I'll take myself as an example. When I majored in computer science, back in my bachelor's of science, the class was around 30 persons, and we're just 2 women, 2 ladies. So this is it. The culture is there are some majors for women, and others for men, not because, and there is a lack of awareness, ICT awareness when it comes to families and so on. So this is it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we tried to start the conversation. It's obvious that we have to do a lot more work on this, and we're hoping by next year we'll try to consolidate the data and try to really collaborate with all the different institutions to come up with accurate numbers and to shed more lights onto the different trends. Let's remember that also the low numbers are not in some countries here in the Arab region, but it's in Australia, it's in the US, and other part of the developed world as well. So this is a really hard topic. We spent 2 days exploring it. We'll continue to do that, and there is tremendous amount of research going on everywhere throughout the world, because it's an amazing topic to really delve into, especially that we have a large growth in this sector, in IT sector. So it's very important for the entire society to begin this conversation and to take it seriously. And it's not only the job of the women to improve the percentages in this sector, especially after academia, but it's the job of the entire society, especially to improve equality in the society in general. So I'd like to thank you all. I'd like to thank our panelists who came from all over the Arab world and also the US and Canada for the entire 2 days here. And thank you so much for coming and listening to us and also asking questions and helping to bring this exciting event. So thank you so much for coming.